rolling.
Good morning. I'm Charlotte Jones, co-host of the John Telford Detroit Show, coming to you every Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock on WJZZ Cool TV. Also streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Dr. John Telford is a former Detroit Public Schools superintendent, a former world-class athlete, conqueror of Olympic champions, a championship track coach, poet, newspaper columnist, a longtime civil rights crusader, and author of 7 books. Creative Insubordination, What Old Men Know, The Will Robinson Story, The Poetic Prancings of Mad John, The Poet Emperor of Earth, and his explosive autobiography, A Life on the Run. Plus, another upcoming poetry book, Athletes, Activism, and Apple Boughs, a Detroit poetic epic. His books are available on Amazon.com or by calling 313-460-8272. That's 313-460-8272. Dr. Telford has been called a legend and also a lightning rod for controversy, a recipient of the City Council Spirit of Detroit Award and the Joe Louis Foundation Spirit of the Champ Award. He was named Wayne State University's Alumnus of the Year, and a Detroit track is named for him. His email is drjohntelfordedd@aol.com. That's dr.johntelfordedd@aol.com. Dr. Telford also has a show on WCHB AM 1340 that airs on Saturdays at 9:30 in the morning and Mondays at 6:30 in the evening. That's on WCHB AM 1340, Saturdays at 9:30 a.m. and Mondays at 6:30 p.m. And now, without further ado, I present to you that old native Detroiter, the one and only Dr. John Telford.
Thank you, Charlotte Jones, that author extraordinaire of, let's see that book here, that author of A Ain't Always for Apple, an erotic adult alphabet book by Char J. And we don't have the camera here, so I'm holding it up there, but I'll be holding it up again. My name is Detroit. I'm a blue-collar town. Blue salt melts my mid-March snow. Speedy cars and sprinters spring from me. I father fierce fighters and funky music. In a Motown moment, I can spit the blues right back in a bureaucrat's eye. Have you never seen blue salt? No complex chemistry here, only the old color of a new sky. And there's a new sky dawning over Detroit today because we've got Keith Owens in the station today. Keith Owens, that writer, that journalist, that writer of short stories, that, oh man, I could just talk about Keith forever because we've been friends for a long time, and this is one hell of a guy. And he's going to be talking about Detroit Stories Quarterly, because Detroit Stories Quarterly, by the way, I have some stories in there too, and I got a story coming in the next Detroit Stories Quarterly. This is a book that has won a big prize, and we are going to be talking about Detroit Stories Quarterly with Keith Owens, and we're going to be discussing that prize that he won. But I got a couple things I want to say first, because yesterday a gunman shot and killed 14 children and a teacher and wounded several more at Robb Elementary School in Uguide, Texas, in a predominantly Latino community. Less than 2 weeks ago, a white supremacist shot and killed 13 people in Buffalo. 10 of them were black. It's way past time for Congress to strengthen the country's very weak gun laws.
It is.
And I'll be talking more about that on other programs, believe me. But today we're going to be interviewing Keith Owens. And I also have to say that Lamar Lemons called me the other day. Lamar Lemons, who was the president of the Detroit Board of Education when I was the superintendent there back in 2012 and 2013. And Lamar Lemons asked me to mention And I am very happy to mention, because this gets me as angry as it does Lamar, Central Michigan University has phased out its historic track and field program in favor of retaining its golf program in a budget-cutting measure, thus eliminating an opportunity for predominantly African-American sprinters to attend the school on track scholarships. The golf team alumni wielded more clout. So lots of golf team alumni are businessmen who cut a lot of business on the golf course. They cut a lot of deals on the golf course, and apparently sprinter alumni don't play much golf. So that is, believe me, that is angering me, and that's something I'm also going to talk about on WCHB, my other program, which airs Saturday mornings at 9:30 and Monday evenings at 6:30. So, Keith Owens, Char J, and I welcome you to the John Telford Detroit Show on WJZZ this morning, and we finally got it rolling because we've had some technical difficulties today. But by George, we are broadcasting. We are broadcasting, and you know, Keith, I understand, Keith, that Detroit Quarterly's recently won an award.
That's true. Yes.
Tell us about that and how it came about that you won that award. This one mine?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Detroit Stories Quarterly. And first I want to say thank you very much for having me on the show. And also,
it's an honor to have you on the show.
It's good to be here. And
this guy's a really a big guy. You know, he's also the publicity director for the county executive, Warren Evans.
Yeah, executive communications manager.
Communications manager,
right. Yeah. But and thank you. And also with Detroit Stories Quarterly, I just want to say it's not just me. It's put out by the co-founders of me, Cornelius Fortune and Dr. Robert McTire. And Dr. Robert McTire is Cornelius' dad. And so we all put it out together.
Cornelius used to be with the Chronicle.
Yep, that's where I met Cornelius, was at the Chronicle, and of course his dad used to be an editor at the Chronicle. So
and so did Keith.
Right.
Keith was the chief editor of the Michigan Chronicle.
Yeah, twice.
Among all these other things he's been doing.
And so we started Detroit Stories Quarterly about 4 years ago, and what Detroit Stories Quarterly is as its name says, it comes out once a quarter, once a season, and it's all fiction, and it's primarily horror, paranormal, science fiction, alternative fiction, although we do have some straight fiction in there as well. And as Dr. Telford said, we had, I think, 3 stories of his in there, and it's also one of his latest stories in that edition. And we all the stories have a Detroit focus, so that's one of the requirements. And I always say we're always looking for new writers. So if you like to write short stories, fiction, particularly science fiction, horror, please let us know. We'd love to take a look at your stuff. And so like I said, we've been around for about 4 years now, and all the stories have to have Detroit focus. And most of our authors are from Detroit or Detroit area, although not all of them. And the award that we won was the Black Authors Matter Award, which is a national award, and we were really excited about that.
National award.
And that we received the award last Tuesday, I believe that's May 19th, I believe.
Yeah, I watched that.
Oh, thank you. It was we won the May 19th in the mystery, suspense, thriller category. And the way that came about, I was one of the authors that was interviewed on the show. They have a show every Tuesday, Black Authors Matter, and it's a great show on internet show every Tuesday at 7 o'clock, I believe. And I was one of the authors that was interviewed on that show. And what happened all the viewers of that show were invited to vote on which books they liked the best, and which interview, actually, the book and also the interview that they liked the most. From the year. And we made the finals. There were 5 finalists. And then that was about a month ago. And then last Tuesday, they had a great production, real nice show, and it was announced that we had won that award. And so that meant the most people liked us. And I really like that award because I like any kind of award, but that this was just voted on by regular people. Readers.
I voted for you every day for the past 2 or 3 weeks.
That's right. Because they allow people to vote. Could vote once a day, and so we got the most votes. and real excited about that. We've been working at that magazine real hard, so we're happy about that.
Well, I'm real happy about that too, and I'm real happy that you won that award. Now, how did Detroit Stories Quarterly, that's the name of the book, get started? Tell us a little bit more about the people involved. How do you start that publication up?
Right. It's a yes. Like I said, it's a quarterly magazine, and the way it got started, actually, Cornelius Fortune deserves a lot of praise for that. He came up with the idea. Cornelius, Doc, and I, we always years ago maybe 8 years ago, we would meet every month just as a writers group. I started the writers group just because writing is such a solitary thing. I feel it'd be nice just to get some writers together. We could talk about story ideas and stuff. So we would meet at a restaurant and just talk about what we were working on in stories. And then after a while, Cornelius came up with the idea of, wouldn't it be cool if we could maybe start some kind of magazine? So to abbreviate that, we went through all kind of ideas. Did we want to do it monthly? Did we want to do it, weekly? What do we want to do, et cetera? And eventually we settled on the format. And we went on for about a year, almost 2 years, before we finally decided what we wanted to do and whether or not we wanted to have outside writers and that kind of a thing. And then we launched the first one 4 years ago, and it's been going ever since. And we have we have a couple of guys who are graphic artists. We also have an editor, a very good Maria, and she's been with us about 2 years now. And we mentioned her in there. She does a great job for us editing our stuff and getting it in good, readable shape.
So you won the award, and was it just for the quarterly, or was it for just your story?
No, it's for the quarterly.
Okay.
It's for the whole publication, right?
Oh, okay.
Right.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also, in addition to being a writer, this guy's a musician.
Yeah, we talked about
Talk a little bit about your music and what you're doing in that regard.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not doing a whole lot right now, although I'm still keeping my chops up. But we've been musician ever since a long time. I started playing over 30 years ago when I moved to Detroit back in 1993, I'm sorry, and formed a band about a year after I got in town, Blue Spirit Tribe. Blues band, great band, had some great guys. Most of the guys in the band were way more experienced than me, so that taught me a lot. Had some great guys in the band, and we played for a long time, for about 3 years, and pretty much all ton of clubs around in the area. So I played with them. I played with Harmonica Shaw. Played with Luther Keith. Played with Jocelyn B.
Luther Keith?
Yeah, played with Luther Keith for about
My
5
man.
years. He's the most recent guy I played with before I started my own band. And we play. Like I said, most of the bands that I played with in live were mostly blues. And the last band I had was jazz fusion funk. I did have the opportunity to play at the Detroit Jazz Festival with one of my longtime friends, Salim Washington. He and I were in high school together. We've been friends close to 50 years. And we played back in the festival in 2010 on the Pyramid stage. And it was great because he's a master musician. He's a musical director at the University in South Africa, Dubai. I'm sorry, drawing a blank on the city, but it's in South Africa, and he's in New York right now. Been there for a year, but I performed with him, and then his then wife, Melanie Dyer, and then his son was on drums. Wow. And it was so
family affair,
yeah, and had Frank Lacey on and then on horn, and it was a great thing because it kind of took us back to when we were in high school. We always talked about, we'll be, one day we get a chance to perform, play together and do something, big, and then next thing, then all those years later, 30 years later, we got to do it. We played Cliff Bell's, and then we played the Jazz Festival, so it was a real good thing.
Well, Roger Pinzabeni, the owner of station WJZZ, wants to put on some jazz shows. Maybe at the Yacht Club, maybe at some other locations. I can bring him to the Yacht Club if he wants to do that, but he wants to do that. Maybe you could hook up with him and do some jazz.
Well, he also has his backyard boogie barbecues or something he has every Sunday afternoon. You're watching WJZZ Cool TV Live, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Like us, follow us, share us, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world.
And you are listening to the John Telford Detroit Show with Char J. And we're interviewing Keith Owens today, who's won a big prize for Detroit Stories Quarterly. And I must say this, too, before we continue interviewing Keith. Miss Virginia Starkey, fondly known simply as V, the proprietress of V's Boutique, offers a wide range of fine clothing and accessories for ladies. And Char just said yes, she does, because Char is well familiar with her supply of accessories. And
spend
you
a lot of money over there.
no, well, they're top of the line. You're gonna pay there, but you're gonna get some great stuff. You can find all sizes of women's fine apparel in V's one-stop excellent customer service at V's Boutique that you can't find anywhere else in Detroit. And V's is at 16423 East Warren Avenue. 16423 East Warren Avenue. And that's right around the corner from the Alger Theater and from one of the few libraries that is still open. But I understand from Russ Ballant we're going to be getting some more libraries open there. And you can get a hold of V, I think it's 313-662-248. 662-6622 to make an appointment or just to drop into her store. It's open Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. So definitely go to V's Boutique and patronize her. She has some wonderful stuff there. And we have got Keith Owens in the station. And Keith, I want you to talk about the timing of when DSQ, Detroit Stories Quarterly, got started.
Yeah, like I said, Detroit Stories Quarterly got started about 4 years ago, and it was funny because the first publication it was just Cornelius and Dr. McTire and myself writing the stories. So about the first several issues, it was just us.
You guys are writing all the
stories.
stories.
So we were cranking out stories as fast as we could. But then we had other writers, coming on board.
Me.
Had Don. So that was very helpful. So and John had some great stories in there. And of course, like I said, also just we're real happy with the covers too. We had some great art on the covers because people, the way this, particularly these days, I mean, people they don't even turn the page if they don't like what they see on the cover.
Right.
So we always try to get quality covers, and we've been real successful so far on that. And so yeah.
So when are you gonna charge A?
That's different. That's that's
right?
erotica.
Well, right non-erotica. You don't take erotica, do you?
Not right now.
No. I've written some erotica right in my autobiography. You got a copy of my autobiography?
Yeah,
it's a little bit R-rated. So you got started when? When was it?
Well, the book started 4 years ago. That's when Detroit Stories Quarterly. I first started writing when I was a kid. Matter of fact, when we were having some construction done on the house, and it was funny. Had to get a lot of stuff out of the way, and so I was finding. We've been in the house about 18 years, so I was digging up, moving stuff out of closets, and I literally found a box that I had packed to ship from Denver here. My mother passed in 2016, so I was packing stuff and sending stuff, and I had unpacked most of it. I found one I literally had sent to Detroit in August 2016 and never opened it. Hadn't even opened it, and this past weekend, and so I said, I couldn't believe I found. So I opened it up, in addition to a lot of great family photos, which I had been looking for. But there was also my copy that my mother kept of the very first story I ever wrote.
Aww.
Called "The Not For Real Dog." It was written in pencil on two sides of a long sheet of paper, and it was the first short story ever. And I said that's when I started writing, science fiction, because it was an imaginary story about an imaginary ghost dog.
Yeah.
And looking at it, I said I was about 6 years old when I wrote it.
Yeah.
And she still
The
had
Not
it.
For Real Dog.
Yeah, the Not For Real Dog.
You're gonna put that in here?
That's what Pam said. Pam said I need to put it in there. Pam's my wife, for those who don't know, and I do also obviously want to put in a plug for Pam, because with none of this would be happening without her. I mean, she's been not only just a huge supporter, but all the stuff I learned how to do in terms of marketing, promotion, getting the word out, all that. And we also have a newsletter, by the way, if I can plug that, just called We Are Speaking. That's where we do more my political writing and stuff like that.
How can people reach the newsletter?
Right, just go. They can just when they go to Google and type in We Are Speaking. It's a Substack. If you go to Substack and you'll find, We Are Speaking is the name of it, and that you can find it there. Just type in We Are Speaking, it'll come up.
Say it again.
We Are Speaking, and it's a Substack newsletter. It's on the Substack format,
Okay.
and that's where they same. So that's where they can find the newsletter. Yeah, and
Okay.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has his newsletter on Substack.
Oh,
A lot
okay.
of people do. Yeah, so ours is on Substack, and it's called We Are
Lou
Speaking.
Elsendor,
Stubbs?
the great,
What is
great,
it,
great
Stubbs?
center.
Substack. Yeah, Substack.
Sub.
The Not For Real Dog. You did something about a ghost dog,
Yeah,
and I did something about a ghost runner. In one
that's
of-
right.
one of the
That was a
stories
great
in here.
story. That was a
Yeah,
great story.
yeah,
That was a great story. Yeah.
I can't think of the title of my own story, but that's all right. Okay. Oh, and you know what? How Keith can people subscribe to Detroit Stories Quarterly? What do they have to do?
Well, the best thing to do, because we don't have a subscription thing as such in terms of subscribe and send, but what they can do is go to our website, DetroitStoriesQuarterly.com, and that's just like it sounds, DetroitStoriesQuarterly.com, and all of our issues are on that website. So you can just order your books, order the magazine right from there, and and we keep that updated, and we're also on Facebook. Detroit Stories Quarterly is also on Facebook as well. We have a Facebook page, so you can keep up. That's more where you can keep up with what we're doing on the Facebook page. Also on Twitter,
And
So, yeah.
this guy is my manager, and he puts my stuff on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
But he also used to manage my website. What's happening with that damn website? My website's been down for about it seems like it's almost a year.
Oh,
I
it's
don't
right,
know.
and I'm not out of respect. I'm not going to name the company right now, but
I might
used to have-
name 'em.
because I used to have they used to do a great job, and I could, whenever we had problems, and you and I had problems with that website in the past, I could always call them up.
Mhm.
They would go fix the problem, find like that, and straighten it out. Never a problem. It was like 3 times.
Yeah.
I think something went wrong. The website went down. Work it out with them. Be on the phone with them about an hour. They were known for great support. This last time, the website went down, and they acted like it had been. We had never used them as a platform. I'm like, this is the only platform I've ever used. I'm sure people readers don't want to hear all about that, but basically, their customer service went way down.
So as they got bigger, they got
Yeah, they
bad.
just-
They got
Yeah, but
worse.
on that website, I had so many postings of
Yep.
praise for my book. People had written,
It was a great
for free
website.
press and everything else, and I sure would like to get that website back
That's what
up
I
because that was
on the
always.
phone with them for hours. Trying to, and I could not get. And I don't.
Unreal.
I do not understand because it shouldn't be easy. It shouldn't be hard to find a website that you.
I may
host,
have to have you put up a new website, but we will have lost all that material if that
Right.
Well,
happens.
you can get it back.
Yeah, how? I don't know. He hasn't been able to figure out, and they seem to be unwilling to do it. But anyway, that's not what we're here today for. Let me ask you, what kinds of stories do you publish in Detroit Stories Quarterly, and who do you ever make, and how? Excuse me, and how do you ever make exceptions to
Sure.
stories?
Primarily, we do science fiction, horror, paranormal, alternative fiction, that kind of a thing. We do have, as you know, because you sent us some stories that were just straight fiction that
Yeah.
were great, and you also have sent horror as well, and it's fantasy, I should say. We also do
Fantasy,
fantasy. So we do all of those. We like I said, we focus primarily on those, but we also occasionally do run straight fiction. And the reason why we chose those formats, fantasy, horror, science fiction, paranormals, because there's no other publication in Detroit that does that. Focuses on that. And and there's so many. There's a lot. There's a lot of stories, sites that have all kinds of stories. There's magazines. There's Metro Times. There's this. There's that. There's the Chronicle. There's anything you want to name. But there's nothing that publishes science fiction. About Detroit. And I think that so it was filling a gap. And I think there's also a way to give other previously unpublished writers a way where they can publish their stuff.
Right.
And I think because we started the magazine, because we decided we wanted to do it because we control it. So we decide what gets published, and you might not get as broad a reach that way, but we control it. We don't have to have somebody else telling us when it can be published. No, you can't publish this edition. No, you can't put that. We didn't want to be bothered with that. The same thing with my other books. They've all been self-published because I want to do it the way that I want to do it.
Right.
And I think that And like I said, that doesn't mean I will never go traditional publishing. I may do that at some point, but I think with this, particularly with the magazine, we know what we want to get out there.
Controlling the
Right,
narrative.
controlling the narrative of the
Right.
stories, and I think, and fiction and science fiction, sometimes you can tell the truth better through fiction. Then you can just doing a straight story. You can get it's through another lens, and I think that looking at Detroit through that kind of a lens makes it really exciting, and kind of something different. So that's why we did it that way.
And whenever I write fiction, I don't write it much anymore, but I did do some. But I always have some fact in there, or some real people that are kind of disguised,
right.
But
right.
they actually lived and did what I
like
write
historical
that they
fiction.
did.
That's great. Yeah, a lot of stories do that.
Let me ask you this: do you ever do poetry? Are you considering it?
I did poetry long ago, and I really loved it. I haven't done it in a long time, and I mean for a long time, like 40 years. But when I was in college, matter of fact, one of the best pieces I ever wrote was a poetry performance piece, 10 pages long.
Wow.
It was called Sketch of a Ghetto Mother, and it was It was based on we were on a college program called Urban Studies in Chicago. I was on there the first semester of my senior year. But we met a woman in Chicago in the project, and she was the first woman that she had killed her husband, but she received executive clemency from the governor and the reason being because this man had beaten her repeatedly, and finally she got clemency. But her story was so. Because our class sat in her apartment while she told us the story, and it was so dramatic because she remembered when he was a kid. His when he was 6, 7 years old.
His parents probably beat him too.
Yeah, not only they beat him, but they would throw him out the house, and it would be like Chicago winters, and he's sitting out there in the project, 6, 7 years old, and so her parents would let him in so the boy wouldn't freeze to death outside, and then he went, and she said like a lot of folk when he came, then he went away to war, and when he came back, he wasn't the same.
Yeah.
And eventually he would beat her in front of the kid. I'm just not you've heard that story before. But anyway, the poem that I did basically just told the entire story of what you told, and then I performed the poem.
What was it called?
It's called Sketch of a Ghetto Mother, and that I may have a copy of that somewhere. It's been so long, I used to write poems all the time.
I hope you do have a copy. How long would it take you to read it? How much time does it take?
Yeah, I used to do that like a mini play. It was about maybe 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Something like that, something like that.
We ought to bring you back here and do it here.
If I can find it.
If you can find it.
Yeah.
And as you know, I'm a poet. I'm the poet in residence for the Detroit Public School Community District. And I was wondering, I don't know, are you interested in having any good poets on Detroit?
Oh, yeah.
Quarterly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, if it's about Detroit, yeah. We'll talk about that later, but for sure.
I just wrote a poem.
Okay, well, you can
fine.
read it after this. You're watching
Here comes the commercial.
WJZZ Cool TV, live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Like us, follow us, share us, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world.
And we are interviewing Keith Owens on the John Telford Detroit show this morning on Wednesday. And Keith, I'm gonna hit you with a poem that I just wrote.
Okay.
In fact, I wrote a couple of them. This was an old one though. Fascism and classism. Fascism and classism are clearly nearly the same crime. Therefore, I say that since they clearly nearly need to rhyme. But in addition to that, I wrote one called Cautionary Notes. Coal is inedible. Oil is undrinkable. That's the poem. And this is the last one I wrote, and I call this one Global Warming, ? And this is getting into what's happening in the world today. Global warming, ? Where might we all be if there were no tree to climb, nor verse to rhyme, nor bird to sing, nor one with a capital O on one, nor one to bring salvation. I don't know, maybe that's too religious. I don't know. Anyway, let me, I don't know, would you be interested in that poem? I'll send it to you. In fact, I'll send you all three of them. But let me ask you this. What goals do you have for Detroit Stories Quarterly? How big do you want this thing to become? I mean, it's already pretty big. You just won this big prize, but what are your future plans for Detroit Stories Quarterly? How big do you want it to get to be? Because I got an idea it can get to be pretty big.
Well, I hope so. I mean, what I really would like is that, because it's mostly local now, although the award we won is not local, so I guess it has more attention now. But what I would really like is there are other big, great science fiction magazines. There's fantasy, there's Asimov's, there's a number of other, that have been around forever. But I would love to be, we could. To eventually get to that level where people, other people in that who read those sort of stories, fantasy, science fiction, know about Detroit stories, and know that magazine. And I think that's what I would really like, So when they think about good, science fiction magazines, fantasy magazines, or publications, that they know about Detroit Stories Quarterly, and particularly also because we're also the only one that I'm aware of, the only publication that has a lot of primarily black themed stories. There aren't many out there, and there's a big Afrofuturist science fiction movement out there.
Right.
Somebody I'm very fond, a good friend of mine, Ingrid LaFleur. And matter of fact, at the Malcolm X Opera last week, I was really pleased because in the program she was talking about Afrofuturists in the program for the opera, and she mentioned me. As one of the Detroit Afrofuturists. I was really proud of that. But I mean, there's Adrienne Marie Brown. There's Ingrid LaFleur. There's a lot of other great just locally, science fiction Afrofuture writers, and nationally there's some great ones. Of course, Octavia Butler. Everyone, Morphe. She's very well known. Right. There's some other ones that are well known, but it's same thing. I want them. I want the greater community nationwide and to know what we're doing, and what we're trying to do to get more attention to that about Detroit. And I think because there's so much more attention, a lot of attention now positive on Detroit. In the last I think 10 years or so, it's not just all the negative news.
Absolutely.
And so I think that we're trying to take advantage of that. To get people to look at Detroit in another way, through another lens.
So you would keep Detroit on the publication in this enterprise.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, that's great, because people know Detroit all over the world.
Right.
They do.
That's exactly right.
And this would put our best foot forward.
Right.
Take away that negative connotation and put us in something different. We can do a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right.
Are there any special Detroit Stories Quarterly events coming up that our audience here on WJZZ would like to should know about?
Matter of fact, there's and I keep looking on my calendar while I'm talking, but near the end of June we're having a reading. We Book Suey is a store in Hamtramck, and independently owned store, and they're great. They've been carrying our stuff for 3 years, almost since we came out, and we were doing readings there. Quarterly readings before the pandemic, and so now they've been carrying our stuff, and now they're starting to do readings again. So we're going back there to appear, and that's going to be in June, and I believe it's. Let me look at that. I'll find it. But it look, and I'll send it to you. Matter of fact, when that's going to exactly, because I believe that's the 25th. Yes, it is. It's June 25th from 7 to 8:30. On Friday, June 24th. Friday, June 24th, from 7 to 8:30 at Book Suey. Two different words, book and then Suey, Suey.
Like chop suey.
Like chop suey, right? Like chop suey, right? Yeah. Book Suey in Hamtramck, and hopefully, please come on out. We're going to be reading.
I want to attend that.
Yeah, please.
And I'm also asking, maybe you come and get me.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm gonna be there.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds great. Book Suey in Hamtramck.
Yep.
Okay. Any other special events coming
Not
up?
right now, but we're looking forward to that one very much.
Okay, tell us some more about your own writing career. When did you start writing stories? What kind of stories did you write? When did you first realize you wanted to become a professional writer?
Well, I think, I mean, like I mentioned that one story I found that, you know,
Six,
it's around
right?
6, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
so literally, I mean, my mother read to me since I was child, and you know, my mother, God rest her, you know, 'cause she was one that started me, like everybody, mom did, you know, did it all for me. I was reading by the age of 2, you know, so there was, yeah, I was
Me
reading by
too.
2, yeah, yep, same to my wife, they say, you know, so I've been reading forever. And then, like I said, I wrote that story when I was about 6, and I just loved to write stories, you know, and I was always the one in class. I remember in 4th grade, only black kids in school, but in 4th grade, I mean, I was reading Bullfinch's mythology in 4th grade, you know, so I love that kind of those kind of stories, and so when they wanted us to write a story, everybody had to write a short story in 4th grade, so most, you know, the kids were writing, you know, a little short story. I think mine at that page was like 4 or 5 pages long. And they were like, "What?" You know, and then
She said short
story,
story.
yeah. And then sixth grade in history class, it was the same thing. She said she wanted us to do because we were covering writing about, you know, King Arthur's court and dragons and that kind of thing. So she said, "Well, everybody write a little short story about King Arthur." Same thing. Mine was 13 pages long.
Once again,
yeah, not, I'm the one who just doesn't listen.
Right.
It's like, but I couldn't stop. They're all, you know, because you write. I mean, the stories
I know.
come to you. You know, I mean, I always look at writing like it's just transcription. I mean, I see it's happening, and I'm just pretty much writing down what's happening as it's going on in my head. You know, so it's like I don't know where the story's going to go until I get there. You know, it's just this is what's happening. So I'm right. So if it didn't stop, it did. I mean, as I got older, you know how to control it. I mean, because I can write short, long, whatever needs to be done. But that's where the story is. You know, it's just something that's in you. So I've always liked writing, you know, science fiction, you know, horror, fantasy. Those have always been my favorite kinds of stories forever. I mean, if I could have done, although I love journalism and really enjoyed my career in journalism, I became a journalist. So I couldn't get paid regularly as a
right.
novelist. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why I did it. And
Yeah.
a lot of my friends did the same thing.
They say the starving artist is also the starving fiction writer, the starving poet, you know, starving any kind of art, you know.
That's
But,
creative. Yeah.
what is interesting to me as an educator is that both of you guys have told me that you were reading at 2. And I would like to know how it was accomplished to help you become able to read at 2. You know, I was when I was a year and a half old, I drew a picture on the kitchen floor of my house on 16th Street that my mother kept all those years, and it was a picture of a skyscraper and an airplane up in the sky, and she asked me later, do you remember drawing this? And I said, yes, I do. She said, well, you were 18 months old when you did this, so you have a very good memory.
Wow.
So I remember being a year and a half old, but I could not read until I was in the 1st grade when the teachers taught me to read at Estabrook Elementary School in Linwood and McGraw. So how is it that the two of you were able to read at the age of 2? Because as an educator, I'm very curious about how that happened, because I would like to see that replicated maybe in the Detroit Public Schools Community District, because right now I've got an 11th grade class, and well, I should maybe I shouldn't say this, but a lot of these kids can't read.
Right.
And,
I started talking when I was 9 months old. So, and I haven't shut up since. So, I guess that kind of fed into me wanting to go to the next step, which is reading. And it was my great grandmother. She was patient. She was home.
Wow.
She didn't have anything else to do.
Wow.
So that's what her and I did. So.
My mother was a kindergarten teacher, and she believed in reading readiness, you know, but not actually teaching to someone, a child, to read until the 1st grade. So how did you?
Well, same thing. My mother was a school teacher, and my mother, she read to me like a lot of us, Dr. Seuss. I mean, you know, Green Eggs and Ham, the whole 9 yards. She read to me since I just read to me, you know, and just continually read stories. And then we would read together. I still remember, you know, sitting next to her and reading, you know, stories together. And next thing you know, I mean, I was reading. You know, I was reading the stories, and then when I got older, I would read stories to her while she's cooking in the kitchen. You know, I mean, I would, whether it was, you know, Winnie the Pooh, I just love. I mean, I just sit there on a little chair while she's cooking and just reading her, you know, reading to her, and so that's how that got started. And I think it was funny because she always would because I sometimes I'll get lazy with things I didn't want to do something at a
Right.
quick time, or I would tell I couldn't do it. I wasn't able to do it. I wasn't I was mine not able, can't do that. But she would always tell me the story, which I couldn't remember, but except vaguely in my mind. But she said I was always the kind of kid, if somebody else showed they could do it, I would show them I could do it just to show them, and then stop. And there was a kid named Michael, remember Michael Collins, and apparently their parents brought him over. And my parents said, well, why, I wasn't walking yet, and they're wondering, why is he not, walking? And then they brought Michael Collins, and his parents came over, and they're, parents just sitting on the couch, and Michael Collins is up walking around and stuff like that, and they're like remarking, and my parents are the same. And my sister, she said it was the funniest thing. I said I just stood up, walked around the room, sat back down, and didn't walk again for like 5 months. It was
there was no reason to.
Like she said, everybody just stopped walking. He said, "Wait, he can't walk." And he said, and they said, and I just said, it was just like, I can do that. Right, y'all think he can do something? I can do that too, And just sat back down and didn't. And they said, no matter how much they try to prop me up after that, it was like, nope. But just once when I just saw a little kid, so I just walked right behind and just walked around the room and then just sat down. That's pretty much
around him.
That's pretty much been the story of my life. It's like I can do it, and then just I just don't feel like.
That's really horrible.
And what? I forgot something too. I forgot to ask you what instrument you play.
Oh, guitar.
Guitarist.
Guitar. Yeah.
We ought to get you on the guitar, me on the violin, and we'll.
I'll sing.
We'll. Get a musical program going here
that.
one of these days. A lot of times I thought about bringing my violin in, And,
I've heard you play it.
Yeah, I've thought about bringing it in. My hand's getting bad though. I don't know. But maybe one of these days you get your guitar, I'll get my violin, and we'll talk Char into singing, and we'll.
Okay.
What piece should we do? Let's think about it. What would be a good?
I have to think a minute about that.
Maybe Battle Hymn of the Republic.
A blues
I don't
number.
know. A blues
number, right.
Yeah, it has to be a blues number.
You're watching WJZZ Cool TV, live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world.
And you are listening to the John Telford Detroit Show with Char J co-hosting, and we are interviewing Keith Owens, who has just won a big prize for his Detroit Stories Quarterly, and that's what we're talking about. And also, before I forget, I've been in touch with Council President Sheffield's office, and I talked to Latosha Logan there, and she said that she was going to see that Mr. Isidore Baker was accommodated because his apartment was burned in a fire in Detroit, and he has lost all of his identification. So he is basically a non-person. Luckily, he does have a phone number, and he saved his phone number in his cord, but he's in a facility now that he's not sure he's going to be able to stay in. So Latosha, please, as I understand, I talked to him yesterday morning. He said no one from the councilwoman's office has come to help him yet to get to the Secretary of State, get to some new identification, get his Social Security back, because right now this gentleman has no money. He just has the clothes on his back, a phone, and a cord. And his number, and this is Isidore Baker, a senior citizen, lives in Detroit. His phone number, if anyone else wants to help him, it's 248-445-9347. That's 248-445-9347. Isidore Baker.
You've been trying to get him some help for a while now.
We have been trying to do that, and Miss Latosha Logan in Council Person's the Council President's office has said that she's going to get over there and make sure that he gets taken care of, and she told me that personally, and now he keeps calling that office, and I keep calling that office, and I wish I had that number here right now because I'd give it to you again, and I would encourage you to call that office. Oh, I think I do have it. 224-4505. 224-4505 is Council President Sheffield's office. That's Council President Mary Sheffield. who, by the way, is the son of Horace Sheffield, a very good friend of mine, Reverend Horace Sheffield, and the grandson of Horace Sheffield Jr., who also was a very good friend of mine, and the niece of Levon Sheffield, who also was a very good friend of mine. And she has passed, unfortunately. Levon has passed. But the number of that office is 224-4505. So please call that office and encourage that office and Miss Latosha Logan to finally get over there and help Isidore Baker.
Yeah.
Okay? That would be
an awful feeling not to have anything.
That would be a real mitzvah.
Yeah, that is
A real mitzvah if you would do that. Okay, what else do we want to ask Keith? We've got Keith, and we're almost out of time, but we've still got some time. Keith, did you ever want to become anything other than a writer?
Well, we talked about musician. That we usually know about writer. I've always wanted to do that, both of those. The only other thing, and this is way completely different. I used to, when I was a little kid, marine biologist.
Oh, okay.
Because my parents had had a library at the house. That's where I read law. That said so many good books. But they also had a big series of books on biology, and marine stuff like that. And I just love reading about the fish and marine biology and stuff like that. And for a period of time, I thought that would just be something I would love to do. So that's the one thing that I could stay out of character because I really enjoyed that kind of stuff. So that was the one other thing that I really, for a while, was thinking maybe I might want to do.
Well, another thing you could have aspired to. This is the Detroit Track Old Timers shirt. As a founder of this group, the Detroit Track and Field Old Timers, and this guy here, Keith Owens, in prep school or high school.
High school, yeah.
High school ran the 100 meters. Now, don't tell me. Was it 100 yards or 100 meters?
100 yards. Dude.
He ran 100 yards in 10 seconds flat?
Yeah.
10 seconds flat.
On gravel, yeah.
On gravel. Now, that's 10 seconds flat on gravel, and that's the equivalent of a 10-8 100 meters. I don't know if you're aware of it. It translates to 10-8. Yeah. And 10-8 is stepping. There aren't too many people who can run 10-8. And I'm sure that if you were doing this in high school on gravel, you can knock off about half a second, maybe probably more than that.
What the way the tracks are now.
Yeah, that's right. So in high school on gravel, you were 10-8. You would have been about 10-3 or thereabouts now. And that's getting into professional runner time. Yeah. See, in our days, they weren't pros.
Right.
I ran 10-4 for 100 meters. I ran it in Ancona, Italy, but that was also on a dirt track. Right. I never ran on one of those, and neither did you, on one of those new...
No, I remember when it came out Tartan, but that was after I had run. Yeah, I never did run on one. Once I did.
Ran a tartan track one time?
I remember, but at Harvard, I think they had a meeting. I think they had a tartan track, indoors. Yeah.
I never ran on one, but I took my relay team. I had relay teams that I coached in Detroit. They were state champions at Southeastern and Pershing. I took my Pershing team, I can remember, up to... how was our time? We okay?
Yep, we're good.
I took my Pershing team up to Ann Arbor, and they my mile relay team, they won the state championship. And I wanted to see how that track felt. So I took a shoe off, and I put Reggie Bradford's shoe on my foot. He was one of my runners. And I just kind of took I said, oh, man, I would have loved to run on one of these.
The feel of it.
Oh, yeah. It gave back.
Just your foot just bounces up. It's just like, you can just fly. You can just man. Yeah, it's a great feeling on those tracks.
Henry Carr ran the 220-yard dash in 20 seconds flat.
Which is unreal.
When he was a senior at Detroit Northwestern High School, he tied the world record when he was a senior. There's only one other runner who ever did that, and did it at 100 yards, and that was Jesse Owens out of Cleveland East Tech, ran 9.4. So Henry Carr's 20 flat, because they've done studies comparing dirt tracks to rubber tracks. Right. His 20 flat, knock off 0.3 of a second for meters, because this was full 220 yards. Okay. Yeah. So it would have been about a 19.7. Knock off another 0.9 of a second. 0.9 of a second. So 19.7, 18. He would have been in the 18s.
Wait, the difference between the gravel and the tartan or whatever is 9/10?
It is 1.8 tenths of a second sprint pace for the full
Are you serious?
lap. They've done a study. It's 1.8. I think it was Track and Field News did this study. 1.8 tenths of a second. Now, this is not accurate to the tenth of a second.
sure,
I mean,
sure.
because there could be differences here or there, but
Right.
generally, a quarter-mile dash is almost 2 seconds faster than dirt on a rubber track.
Okay.
So basically, my 46 would have been,
So the
a
100
lot
meter
faster.
really is about a half second.
That's exactly right. You'd have been around. You'd been
About
running about
9.99.
10.3 for 100 meters, and
meters.
you'd have been running 9.5 for 100 yards.
All right, back
in
on
in
track.
high school.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we're on track. We're on track.
Pun intended. Final thoughts. You got a minute. Anything you want to say to?
No, I did like that. I appreciate very much being on the show. I just want to remind people once again, to please visit our website at DetroitStoriesQuarterly.com, and also to please come to our next appearance at Book Suey on June 24th in Hamtramck from 7 to 8:30, and also be sure to pick up one of our publications. Please read our stuff and tell your friends about us. And if you're a writer, please submit. Like I said, we can also Detroit Stories Quarterly at gmail.com. You can send us email rather.
At a Gmail.
Send us an email and send us your stuff, and we'll be glad to take a look
I
at
may
it.
submit something.
Yeah, please do.
Well,
Good,
that's going to
good.
do it for us. We're going to
Yep.
wrap it on up.
You've been listening to the John Telford Detroit Show with Dr. John Telford and co-host Charlotte Jones on WJZZ Detroit Internet Television, coming to you live every Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock. Also streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Contact Dr. Telford at 313-460-8272. That's 313-460-8272. Or at Dr. John Telford, EDD, at AOL.com. That's DrJohnTelFordEDD at AOL.com. To sponsor or appear on this show, or to get signed copies of his book, which Hugh Perkins, Jeffrey Feiger, and Dr. Wayne Dyer all call spellbinding and sensational. It was the late, great Dr. Wayne Dyer who said, Dr. John Telford has a warrior's heart and a poet's soul. Read Dr. Telford's commentaries on the schools and other vital topics in the Telford Telescope column in the Detroit Native Sun newspaper. And also hear him on his other station, WCHB AM 1340, every Saturday morning at 9:30 and Monday evening at 6:30. That's every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. and Monday evening at 6:30 p.m. on WCHB AM 1340. Tune in again next Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock to the John Telford Detroit Show here on WJZZ Cool TV with Dr. Telford and co-host Charlotte Jones. Thank you for listening to the John Telford Detroit Show.